I'm Vinny Politan. We begin this hour of closing arguments with breaking news in a story we were just covering last hour. The mysterious death of Lauren Smith Fields in Connecticut. Here's her picture, 23 years old, died in her apartment. And she was with someone that she had met on the Bumble dating app. The family extremely frustrated and angry with investigators because they had not gotten an answer about what happened to their daughter, and were angry with investigators because of the way they handled it. The man that she was with was never interrogated. They never really tested his story. He has a lawyer now. And we hadn't heard from the medical examiner yet. But now, as soon as we finished doing that story last hour, we've got new information. And just coming from the office of the chief medical examiner in Connecticut. Okay? The immediate cause of death in the case of Lauren Smith Fields was acute intoxication due to the combined effects of fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxyzine, and alcohol. Okay, let's go through that again. The combined effects of fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxyzine, probably not saying that right, and alcohol. That was the immediate cause of death. The manner of death has been labeled an accident. All right. That's the information we got, but what does it mean? What questions still are there? Let's bring back in our special guest who rejoining us tonight, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, forensic media analyst, former senior investigator for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, Joseph Scott Morgan, back with us. All right, Joseph, I don't know if I pronounce everything correctly, but this is what we're getting tonight from the Medical Examiner's Office in Connecticut. Your thoughts about what we just learned.
Keep us on split screen, Ben. I got one word I want you to pronounce for me. Cocktail.
Cocktail. That's it?
Yeah, that's what this sounds like to me. Yeah, I mean, just promethazine is actually an anti-nausea drug that causes drowsiness. Hydroxyzine is actually, it can be used as an anti-anxiety drug, but it's got antihistamine qualities to it. So again, drowsiness. And then we all know about the scourge of fentanyl, right? But fentanyl is essentially a synthetic opiate. And so you take those three agents, look at that on the screen. Those three agents right there, and you combine them with alcohol, that is a recipe for disaster. That is a lethal cocktail. And I cannot imagine in any universe where this young woman would say, yeah, okay, let me have a dosage of fentanyl, let me have a dosage of promethazine, and have a dosage of hydroxyzine. Oh, and let me wash it down with some alcohol. That it almost seems absurd to me. So that means that these would have had to have been ingested in some kind of combination. I think that's rather obvious, but I think that that's key here. Now, keep in mind, when the ME rules this as an accident, they're not ruling this from the same perspective that, say, a law enforcement agency would. If the ME would rule this as a homicide, they would have to be presented with what you lawyers call intent in order to push it over that line for them. To this point, I don't know if that has been established yet. But, you know, of course, we all know that there are cases where medical examiners and coroners have gone back in time and they've changed the manner of death. So I'm going to be very, very interested to see how all of this unfolds. I'm amazed at this combination, and it's popped up right now. And, you know, you combine that with alcohol. I mean, how many warnings do we have out there in the general public where people tell you to stay away from these drugs? And whatever you do, don't mix it with alcohol. I mean, we've heard that for years and years. And so to me, this smacks of a cocktail. Now, how she administered it to herself or how it was administered to her, I don't have an answer to that.
Is,
but those
is there any
drugs
way
are
to
in her
figure that
system.
out? Is there any way to figure that out from toxicology, the amount of each, and again, how it's all ingested, at what point it's ingested, whether
Yeah,
how long it's been in your
yeah.
system?
Well, yeah, I mean, drugs have a half-life, but this is important. So folks at home really grasp this. When we draw toxicology, that's urine and blood and all those other fluids that we draw at autopsy. We go for what's called a qualitative amount, which means we say that those substances are in the system. Now, it takes a bit longer to get a quantitative amount. And people don't, I don't think people at home realize this, but when we're looking at these drugs on a toxicology sample, when you look at something like fentanyl, there is actually a therapeutic range for fentanyl. Okay, therapeutic range. Traditionally, uh, fentanyl has been used as an anesthetic. Okay, or for an early form of anesthesia or a painkiller, that sort of thing. So there are, in fact, uh, therapeutic limits. Now it's when you get beyond those limits that it becomes dangerous. Oh, and also when you mix them and combine them, it causes what's referred to as an antagonistic reaction. And so you combine that with alcohol. Again, that's why I'm saying this is a lethal combination. So now, armed with this information, the police in Bridgeport need to go back out and start asking some questions. What are the origins of these medications? Why does she have these in her system? Did she have access to them? Did this fellow that they keep mentioning, this mystery fellow, did he have access to them? What were they doing that evening? Did they go to a bar? This could have been slipped to her. I don't know. I think the family deserves those answers.
Absolutely. So some of the information, preliminary information that we've gotten is that they were out and they were drinking before they went back to her apartment. There was also an indication that she was throwing up when they got back. So she wasn't feeling well. But then they continued to drink. And that part to me doesn't make a ton of sense. So tell me about fentanyl. Is fentanyl something that could be put into a drink, could be slipped into a drink, could dissolve in a drink, and someone could ingest it and not even know it?
Yeah, I'm sure that it probably could. It all depends on, kind of the form that it's going to take. If it's rendered down to the point and the person is sharp enough to know how to apply it, yeah, most certainly. I think that that could be facilitated. Any of these drugs could, and particularly if you create a combination by secreting them into a drink like alcohol, and depending upon the alcohol, the level of kind of the fruitiness of the drink, for instance, the sweetness of it, it may mask the taste of any kind of underlying substance. So you're not really going to know what you're taking on board at that moment in time. I find it very interesting uh, that she was throwing up, and that has been mentioned. I think my question would be, we know about the levels of, or we know that these drugs are present. I think that the other important piece of information here, Vinny, is to know what her blood alcohol level was. What's her BA, as they call it? Is it in a lethal range? Because alcohol just standalone, if you're not used to drinking it, you can die of acute alcohol toxicity as well. So, what's her tolerance level for alcohol? How long had she been drinking? How much had she been drinking? And at what point in time? Timeline is very important here. At what point in time had she begun to regurgitate? And was this actually witnessed? Did somebody see it? Were there any complaints leading up to it? Oh, I'm dizzy. Oh, I'm nauseated. Did she have stabbing pains in her abdomen? That's why it's so important at the beginning of an investigation like this that you go back and you glean that information at that moment in time before everything kind of washes away, through the progression of time. And this we're talking about a 23-year-old young lady here. This is not somebody that would have had time at this point in her life to have developed these dependencies that are multi-layered drugs and alcoholism and all these things that we see maybe later on in life. Uh, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't heard anyone yet say that she's a drug abuser. So it would really, I think that there are some hard scientific questions that need to be asked in addition to the investigative questions.
How about the bloody nose? Knowing what we know now and knowing that according to the man she was with, that she met on this Bumble date, on this Bumble app and had a date with. How does the bloody nose relate to any of this, or does it not relate to any of this?
No, I think that there's probably some kind of correlation. I don't know. I think first, you know me, Vin, I'm I'm a cynic. I have to my first point here is to try to determine if in fact there's been any kind of trauma. You know, anytime I see blood, I'm going to think trauma. That's just a little death investigator in me. Beyond that, I have to begin to think about some kind of vascular problem that she may be presenting with. And if it's demonstrating through blood issuing from her nose, I think the question is there any evidence that she had indwelling hemorrhage in any other location in her body? Now, I'm not saying this is what happened. All right, please don't misunderstand me. But in some cases, people can actually ingest drugs nasally and or uh, through their nasal passages, and this will cause a bad reaction. And back years and years ago when cocaine was all in vogue, and I was a young death investigator, I would see this happen with cocaine. But generally, that's over a protracted period of time where you have this kind of erosion of the mucosa in there. So I don't know. I mean, look, at this point, everything is on the table. Nothing is off the table at this point because, again, she's 23 years old. She appears to be healthy. You have to be able, these questions have to be asked and they have to be answered sufficiently. I think that everybody, not just the family, the public wants to know because, what if this is something indicative of maybe other deaths that have similar uh, patterns to them? I think that everybody in that area of the country would want to know if this is something that's ongoing. Have there been other young people that have suddenly died as a result of this? This is when it goes from just the consideration of a criminal investigation to maybe it's a public health issue, where people are being exposed to drugs and some kind of agent that's creating this kind of manifestations. And it's causing a 23-year-old girl to die suddenly out of the blue.
Absolutely. So again, the important takeaway here so far that I'm hearing from you, Joseph Scott Morgan, is that even though the manner of death has been labeled an accident by the ME, that doesn't end this investigation. It actually is really just beginning at this moment. Joseph Scott Morgan, working hard hours, long night for you tonight, coming back on. We appreciate it. We'll see you again. When we come back, folks, we got more on this breaking news involving the death investigation into Lauren Smith Fields out of Connecticut. The family attorney will join us now in light of this new information that we've gotten from the medical examiner. Don't go anywhere.
What we've been seeing largely in the country is that if someone dies under these circumstances, and unfortunately, if they're a person of Caucasian descent, they get a priority. In these poorer or minority communities, beautiful young women like Lauren are just discarded. We've seen across the country, Black girls go missing at alarming numbers, and they get no response. But then you have a Gabby Petito who goes missing, and the whole world responds. And United States has helicopters in the air. They have a search mission all over the place. And in this particular case, it's not the same. And we feel like the police have been racially insensitive, and they just don't care.
That's Darnell Crosland. He's the attorney for the family of Lauren Smith Field. And she died, just 23 years old. There was someone with her when she died, but that person has not been interviewed by investigators. And there were a lot of questions, and the family was feeling a lot of frustration and not getting answers because all this happened back in December. And it wasn't until just moments ago that we've gotten some information about how Lauren Smith Field died. This coming from the medical examiner who released information just moments ago, breaking news here tonight, that the immediate cause of death in the case of Lauren Smith Fields was acute intoxication due to the combined effects of fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxyzine, and alcohol. The manner of death has been labeled an accident. That's according to the medical examiner. I want to bring in special guest joining us tonight from Stamford, Connecticut, Lauren Smithfield's family's attorney, Darnell Crosland, joining us. Darnell, it's late. You're working hard, and thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. We're just getting this information tonight from the medical examiner. I want to get your reaction. Does this answer any questions that you and the family of Lauren have about what happened?
You know, we have more questions now than answers. And unfortunate as that is, that's the reality. We cannot understand how, from the beginning of this investigation, we made it quite clear to the Bridgeport Police Department that we're dissatisfied with the way this investigation was handled. Now that we see from the medical examiner's office that there was several different dangerous drugs, including the dangerous drug fentanyl, and we don't even have this gentleman to be questioned. He should have been questioned thoroughly. Did you bring drugs? Were there any drugs involved? What were you guys doing? He made a self-serving statement that night that didn't include half of the situation as we see it unfolding now. And we're just totally upset with that.
And how is the family doing tonight in light of this new information?
They're just shocked. They're just really shocked and upset because they had to grieve and investigate. They had to grieve and march. They had to grieve and fight for justice. And now, only after marching on the mayor's office yesterday, does the mayor release a statement today saying that he's urged the medical examiner to try to release this report quickly. Now, I'm not sure he has that power, but out of nowhere, that we get this report. And let me just say this to your listeners. I've been doing this 17 years. I had a case where a guy from Albania had some heroin, and a very rich doctor named Dr. Rubin, a plastic surgeon in Greenwich, Connecticut, flew in on his private jet. He called my client from the air and said, "Hey, I have some cocaine. Can you get some of the stuff?" They met up, they partied together, and Dr. Rubin died. They ruled that death a death by toxicity. That was it, toxicity. And what they said it was the mixture between the heroin and the cocaine. In this particular case, obviously, if there's several different drugs at play here, we know there could be toxicity. The question is, in my other case that I just mentioned, they charged my client with manslaughter. In this particular case, there's definitely toxicity, but where did the drugs come from? And why did they question this white man who met this young black girl on Bumble? This young girl didn't use drugs at all. She went to the gym every single day. She worked out. She don't have any plastic surgery like a lot of these models have, like surgery. She has none of that. It's all natural. And the family is so close, they knew that she wasn't using drugs or any other type of pills. But yet still, this white man is just floating in the air and there's no examination. Go to his house, check his credit card, see did he buy the tequila, see did he spike the tequila. He said that he slept with his clothes on and he never had sex. Yet we forced them to collect a condom with semen in it from the bathroom. And here we are a month later, the condom is collected finally 2 weeks after the death. And now we're 4 weeks and nothing has been submitted to the laboratory in Meriden, the forensic laboratory, for testing. So we are really at a loss here, and we're not going to stop until we get justice.
Well, it seems that with your help and making noise, there has been some reaction. The fear is that it's too little too late, right? The man that she was with has a lawyer. At this point, with this information out there, my guess is he may not speak anymore. Was there anyone else there that night? I've heard reports, I don't know if it's true, that Lauren's brother stopped by that night. Is there anything to that? Did he notice anything? Did he have any conversation with her?
And that's a good thing to point out. So it was Christmas time. So Lauren and her brother went shopping early in the day. And so at some point during that evening, her brother, Lakeem, stopped by and Lauren brought the clothes out to him that they had picked up. He got the clothes. They're so tight. That's his baby sister. They're so tight that she was laughing, joking. No, he would have known if something was wrong with her. She never mentioned that anyone was in the house, and it's a private family house. She rents the downstairs basement, and they had a couple of conversations for a little while, and then she went back in the house. Not drunk, not sick, not dizzy, nothing. This gentleman says that she comes back in the house, goes in the bathroom. He says that she's terribly sick, but after she's terribly sick, they start drinking more. That doesn't make any sense. If you're terribly sick, you wouldn't start drinking more. You wouldn't offer her more drinks. And I just want to say to you this: in Connecticut, your listeners might not know this, but in Connecticut, if you give someone else drugs, that's a sale under our statute. That's a 15-year felony. If those drugs that you give someone cause them to die, that's manslaughter. And so in this particular case, the police need to be doing what they always do when fentanyl is involved. They try to track the source because it's so dangerous. They need to interview this gentleman to see if he had any fentanyl. Have he ever used fentanyl? Does he have any connection to fentanyl? And then they need to track that. I'll say this last thing. A couple weeks ago in Connecticut, there was a couple kids who died at a local school from using fentanyl, and it's so toxic that the police treat it as a hazmat scene. They locked the teachers in their classrooms, and they had hazmat suits because fentanyl, if it gets in the air, it can kill you. I had another case a couple of months ago. A little baby died of fentanyl. What happened was there was fentanyl in the house, and on the surface, he touched the coffee table, the little baby, about 3 years old. He put his fingers in his mouth, and he died. So fentanyl could transfer in the air. It could transfer from surfaces, and this man could have put fentanyl in her drinks or anything that they were eating. And then he said they didn't have sex, but there's a condom with semen in it. So he could have drugged this girl. He could have had sex with this girl while she was dead, before she died. We don't know what happened because the police said he's a nice man, and there's nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah, that's it's murkier and murkier. I mean, everything that you point out, the inconsistencies, the illogical stories, are red flags, obvious red flags for investigators that haven't been followed yet and need to be followed. Do you know anything else about the man she was with? Any history with other women? Obviously, it's the job of investigators to figure all that out. But I know you're on top of this. Have you uncovered anything?
Well, let's start from the top. So we all seen TV, and we know that the first 48 hours is important. We know that crime scenes need to be quarantined. They didn't do that. What we do know is that the gentleman stated that he met my client on Bumble, right? A dating app. As of this week, the CEO of Bumble has reached out to us and also made a public statement that their members are thoroughly vetted for safety reasons. Also, the CEO has made it clear, made a public statement that they stand ready and willing to assist law enforcement across the country. They also said that at this late hour, Bridgeport police have not called them to ask for any help. Didn't ask for a list of the conversations, nothing. Didn't ask to see whether, in fact, this guy has a profile of red flags. Because I think if you're on this platform, if you have a concern about someone, you can report them or you can give them ratings. You think the police would want to call Bumble and see what kind of ratings this guy has, what kind of red flags out there? Nothing. And when this case went viral as it is, people started texting us now, and other women have stated that they've dated this gentleman and that he's a creep, and that they started explaining their experiences with him, none of which are good. So we have our own investigators going out now to take statements from these women, and we're compiling them, and then we're going to make our next move. One of the things we do want to get is the 911 tapes, which the city has not released to us, because regardless of what they put in that self-serving statement, the 911 calls will show the inflection in his voice, and it may tell a different story than what the police typed up.
Absolutely. You're in Connecticut. Do they release that information, or is that going to be a battle for you to try to get?
Typically, they could release body cam, 911 the same day. If they are being difficult, they can say, quote unquote, it's an ongoing investigation, so you have to wait. So the mayor has now finally, after we marched on his office yesterday, come out with a statement supporting us and stating that protocols weren't followed and that he stands willing to assist the family. So we're going to go to him first and ask him, can he press on his police department to give us the 911 tapes immediately? No need to hold them any longer. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. The cure for when trust has been broken is more and more transparency, and that's what's absolutely needed at this point. Darnell Crosland, I know you joined us last minute. We appreciate it. We'll stay in contact with you, and obviously we're going to stay on this story to see what actually does happen here, because ultimately our system of justice needs to get to the truth wherever it leads. And I know the family's in good hands with you, so we appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of the show, and it's an honor to be on the show. Thank you for supporting this family.
All right. Thanks so much. Darnell Crosland, the attorney for Lauren Smith Fields' family. Again, big breaking news tonight, getting information from the medical examiner